to real economy. 350 million of us in Europe, that's 70% of the population, live in towns and cities with more than 5,000 inhabitants. So in this episode, we take a look at how the sustainable growth of our cities is imperative for our overall economic health. On the show, we look at the mega trend of urbanization and the growth strategies of different kinds of cities. We'll then catch up with Martin Powell, Global Head of Urban Development for electronics and engineering giant Siemens, and talk about the sustainability of it all. And then we'll look at the technological drivers in Poland. Europe has 23 cities with more than 1 million people. It has 345 cities with a population of around 100,000. And remember, only 7% of us live in big cities with a population of more than 5 million inhabitants. Now, add all those numbers up, and it's pretty obvious that urban economic growth is important. But why? Here's our crash course.
Over the course of the last century, Europe became predominantly urban, with 2/3 of us living in cities, generating 67% of Europe's GDP. Cities bring consumers, workers and businesses together in close proximity. This results in specialisation. Highly educated workers gravitate to cities because there is a high concentration of businesses, which then specialise. The presence of a car manufacturer, for example, leads to other companies specialising in, say, microchips for cars. This results in cost reductions. But to maintain these workers and businesses, a city must provide strong infrastructure and a high standard of living. And cities have problems like unemployment and high CO2 emissions from transport and housing. So smart growth means finding innovative and cost-effective solutions to these problems.
Cities today face tough economic times. For growth, they must create jobs, and not just any jobs. They have to compete with other cities to attract the right talent, for which they need the right infrastructure and therefore innovation. So how do cities, their officials and their citizens get smart? Martin Powell, Head of Urban Development at engineering and electronics giant Siemens, joins us now. Martin, thanks very much for giving us your time. Let's start by asking you the biggest question. Public-private partnerships when it comes to growth in cities, how important is it?
Yeah, going forward with the rates of urbanisation, with the big targets that cities have to get to in the future, we're seeing that these partnerships are going to become increasingly important, that the beneficiaries of some of these projects need to really invest up front in long-term energy projects.
When it comes to funding, are we strategizing correctly? Are there any fault lines in the way we are planning?
I always believe governments talk, but cities act. So cities have a lot of lessons learned, and they understand the funding models that are going to work. One great example is the Jessica Fund, structural funds, European money, proving hugely successful across Europe. And what this does, opposed to the traditional way of providing grants, it does loan and equity financing. And these kind of funds are the way that we're going to get the pace and scale of technology into our cities and the change that we're looking for.
How sustainable is this rate of development that we need?
Cities like London and the big cities are where people find employment. It's very important for the cities to protect that employment and to find the kind of industries that are going to keep those cities remaining attractive. Cities are setting very tough targets for climate change. They're experiencing unprecedented growth in terms of urbanisation. I would say the big cities, the very big cities, are taking care of this quite successfully. But the mid-sized cities are the ones that are going to need the help.
We'll catch up with Martin in just a bit. But remember, by 2025, 10% of the world's population will live in just 37 cities. So just sheer size and scale means that big cities have to keep innovating despite economic crises. But Europe is full of mid-sized cities where we all live. Gianni Maggi travelled to Graz in Austria after chatting with the who's who of European mayors to compare the growth strategies of the big boys and their mid-sized cousins.
Graz, the second largest city in Austria, has seen substantial population growth in recent years, and its international image has been reinforced by major investments in culture. but most European cities are battling with the consequences of the economic crisis.
To encourage growth, large and medium-sized cities are especially focusing on transport and infrastructure, innovation, business incubators and supporting startups, energy and water and waste management, and making it all environmentally sustainable. The worst problem resulting from this crisis is unemployment and, above all, the exodus of qualified young people to Central and Northern Europe. Because losing our qualified young people will affect our future and our ability to recover and develop. It's obvious that we have to restart the economy, and we're doing that by investing in urban regeneration projects, new, more sustainable transport and new businesses, including creating places where young people can develop their projects. Cities are joining forces to get their voices heard and to demand not only funding and resources, but a share in the decision-making.
Across Europe, mayors feel the need for an urban agenda, a more specific policy for cities, which is being discussed within the European Union.
Due to this, if you like, bottom-up pressure from city authorities, we will be able to spend a bigger share of the structural fund money for cities. In the previous period, 2007-2013, it was around 40% of our budget. In the new one, I expect up to 60% being spent in the urban structure in order to improve life quality of people.
Still with us is Martin Powell. He is Global Head of Urban Development at engineering and electronics giant Siemens. Martin, let's pick up on the fact that big cities and mid-sized cities have very divergent strategies, especially here in Europe. Is that a problem?
I think big cities are facing some of the biggest challenges now. So they're seeing increased congestion, increased pollution across the city, and they're having to face these problems today. Mid-sized cities are the problem yet to come, and they have to fight very hard to get businesses to invest there and to ensure that their cities remain livable for the future.
How necessary is it for cities, whether they're 5,000 or 5 million, to be innovative in this current economic environment?
We see cycles of technological innovation from the railway through to the motor car, and the smart cities now is the next cycle where we're going to get lots of investment into really enabling today's infrastructure. You have to invest in transport and energy infrastructure today. These projects take 20, 30 years to show real benefits. Through better data, better communication infrastructure, we're able to deal with some of the short-term problems, buying valuable time for long-term investment.
Where does the private sector fit into all of that?
The key, I think, is to really understand what that technology is going to deliver. And if you don't have a technology company at the heart of that discussion, then it's going to be very difficult to really understand how you invest, the importance of that investment, and how that's going to benefit not just this generation, but future generations.
Getting the right infrastructure ensures that citizens have an economically viable city, so money becomes key. 50% of Europe's regional development fund, that's about 96 billion euros, have been earmarked for cities between now and 2020. And it's for infrastructure projects like this and the one in Gdynia in Poland, as Gianni Maggi explains, where the focus is on getting citizens onto ecological and sustainable public transport.
The Polish city of Gdynia on the coast of the Baltic Sea is at the heart of a new trolleybus revolution in Europe. Thanks to two projects funded by the European Union, the city has completely revamped its transport network across the entire region, including the cities of Gdansk and Sopot. Trolleybuses make public transport cheaper than using the car.
Jeżeli chodzi o udział w rynku, czyli udział w ilości
regarding market share, based on the number of passengers using public transport, We estimate it's almost a third of all passengers. We operate the trolleybuses mainly in the center of the city, and they're very popular.
I w związku z tym ten ruch trolejbusowy jest jak gdyby bardzo przez to również popularny, że
The trolleybuses have changed the image of public transport in Gdynia, which is now seen as a more modern and environmentally friendly way to move around.
We are trying to build the whole system to facilitate the connections for the people to the workplaces, to the offices, to the factories. That they could use public transport system like trolleybuses, trams, also bikes.
The reduction of electricity consumption corresponds to 2,250 tons less of CO2 emissions per year.
On pozwala oszczędzać dużo energii.
It means we save a lot of energy. It teaches us how to manage energy more economically. With new technology, we not only use less energy, but also return energy to the grid.
Dzięki zastosowanym rozwiązaniom technicznym.
Faster journey times, increased comfort and reduced environmental impact all improve the quality of life in this city.
Social polarization, poverty, unemployment, well, these are all the challenges we face today to grow via growing our cities. But it may also be time for our cities to become the innovative centres for economic growth that we need. Thanks for watching Real Economy. We'll see you next time.